I got to tell you, I've been, oh, I forgot my sunglasses. This is going to suck for a drive today. Um, I've got to tell you, I've been really looking at what the hell's been going on in the world as a whole. And I think the way the media does things, and I don't know if it's by design, I think it's just the way news cycles work. They, um, they will give you individual stories, right? They'll say, oh, Russia did this, Iran did that. I swear the cars were way, there were no cars till I pulled up to the intersection. Now they're like 5 million. What the hell? Anyway, continuing. Hey, Dan, thank you for the 5x5. Um, so the way news works in general is it's compartmentalized, right? So, hey, let alone one reporter will do Iran, and one reporter will do Russia, and one reporter will do Trump, and one reporter will do Antifa, right? And so we get these bits and pieces, and the challenge is to try to back away and look at it in an organic sense, in a holistic sense. And it's not easy. You know, even if you're a well-educated, knowledgeable person of history and politics, there's a lot of moving parts. Hey, Winning Streak, what's going on? Hey again. And so, you know, it's kind of concerning when you think about it. You're like, well, hey, farmer, what's going on? We're 6,000 cows. Good Lord, that's a lot of cows. So all at the same time, I'm going to list the individual news cycles I'm reading and then maybe take this walk with me. So we have the protests where this supposedly grassroots organization, this grassroots protest against Elon Musk, whether you like what he's doing or not is irrelevant, but it's supposedly grassroots, as was Antifa, as was Occupy Wall Street, as was Black Lives Matter, which is all bullshit. It's funded. They were out there with pre-printed signs in less than 48 hours. They were out there with printed scripts of different chants to say while they were out there. And on X, Elon was actually saying, I think we need to stop arresting the protesters and let's arrest who's funding them. And I'm like, okay, that's an interesting conjecture. Hey, Teresa. Hey, Ohio Valley. But now let's think about what else we're reading, right? So Putin's playing hardball. He doesn't want to negotiate with Trump, even though Trump said Putin would listen, and Putin's basically telling him to piss off. Zelensky finally folded and said, fine, we'll make a deal. And now Putin doesn't want to. And now he's pissing Trump off because Trump's like, well, if you're not going to play, you know, I worked on Zelensky for you and, you know, he's coming to the table and now you don't want to? You're full of it. And now Iran is threatening that they have loaded their hypersonic missiles. I don't know how you load them. I guess they're prepared for launch or whatever. To attack American military bases all over the Middle East. Because we keep telling them to quit funding Houthis, and the Houthis keep provoking everybody, so we went and beat up the Houthis a bit. And it seems to all be happening at the same time. We have protests here. Now here's what scares me. You know, we're arguing, well, are these protesters just criminals? Hey, Pilgrim, or are they terrorists? Right? And that's a fair conversation, because if it's violence or sabotage for a political reason, then it would be technically terrorism. But what if it's more? What if this is a precursor event? And that thought popped in my head. I was actually talking to my brother who has to deal with this kind of stuff in his job. And he's like, you know, that's kind of horrifying. He told me, he's like, what if Iran and Russia are planning something, but in order to keep us off balance, so to say, they're letting these protests, these riots build steam here in the US so that we get used to seeing people on the streets doing stuff and then operatives execute. Now, I think Prepper Now touched on this and someone else did. I can't remember if it was Angry Prepper or Hudson Valley. One of the two did, and God, I watched a handful of videos this weekend and I'm getting them all confused. Hey, Jasmine, good morning. But that's something that's concerning. So Remember what Russia did before the Ukraine war, right? They deployed troops and then they went home. And they deployed them and then they went home. And they did this over and over and over again. And then one day the troops just kept going and attacked Ukraine. And this went on, these repeated deployments and withdrawal, deploy, withdraw, took place over 2 years. Like, this was not a short-term thing, right? So a lot of people think, oh, Russia just invaded. No, if you look back, they kept deploying troops, and then they'd withdraw them, and they'd deploy, and then they'd withdraw. And have you been, what an idiot, and goodbye. So thank you, Teresa. So it makes you wonder, is the funding not necessarily from George Soros or Musk or whoever? Is it coming from a third party that is trying to keep America's law enforcement tied up, keep our FBI looking at our own streets at these protests, tying up Homeland, tying up, because we've shut the border, right? So we've effectively shut the border. We're kicking a lot of people who shouldn't be here out. They're losing those assets. The assets are getting kicked out. So I'm wondering if they're on a timeline now where, like, all the people out of the 10 million that snuck into the country, we had, say, 5,000 in there who are operatives who are supposed to disrupt America. They're getting kicked out and deported. Now what? We have to move. We need another resource to cause disruption. And is that resource utilizing America's political divide and having people attack Teslas? We're going to get so used to seeing people on the streets, that's when they would attack. When the behavior becomes normalized. And I don't know if I'm explaining myself correctly, but it concerns the hell out of me. They're going to keep funding these protests, right? And 95% of them are just people who are pissed at Elon. Fine. But once you get to that point where the cops kind of get complacent, the public gets complacent, even the protesters are like, oh, we're just going out to protest Elon or protest Tesla. And then somebody clacks off a vest in the middle of a protest. Or even worse, you have 8 or 9 or 12 protests all over the country, all on one day. And they start clacking off in multiple cities at once. At the same time, Iran's making threats, Russia's making threats. Now you think about it, the best way to keep an enemy from really being effective in combat is to disrupt them internally. Remember what happened to Ukraine before Russia invaded, right? They had the eastern part of the country, and now there were some ethnic rivalries, right? They were fighting with each other, and they were fighting amongst themselves, and so their focus was on this little rebellion, and they weren't expecting paratroopers to come out of Belarus and try to take out Zelensky, right? Now, whether you like Zelensky or Putin is not the point. The point is, we have recent precedent where a distraction over months, if not a year or years, was occurring before a major action occurred. And if you think about it, that's the way World War I started. A lot of people think, oh, they killed the Archduke and then World War I started. Actually, Serbia and Austria were having fights months before, or years before, actually. Hold on, I gotta... Walid Dogar is gone. Thank you. Hey, Jari Stay. Good morning. Oh. Wow, I got some, like, you know, even the trolls aren't even making, Aaron, yes. Even the trolls are asking goofy questions. It's not even, like, funny. And hey, good morning, Sanan. Yeah, like, if you're gonna troll, put something funny that everyone would laugh at, like, oh, hey, that's kind of funny, you know, that's sarcastic. but they're just putting like really weird things. But this is what concerns me. It's well, Ohio, if they have no jobs, that's probably why they're trolling. And I'm suspecting a lot of the trolls are coming from other countries. But anyway, it's stormy here. The causeway is closed. Oh, yay. The causeway. Yeah, I don't miss driving over the causeway. It's a pretty drive, but good Lord. But anyway, folks, my big concern, I'm wondering if right now we're trying to push for a peace process in Israel, we're trying to push for peace with the Houthis, we're trying to push for a ceasefire in Ukraine. We've got all these irons in the fire, so to say, and all of a sudden we have all these weird protests where they're attacking vehicles randomly. I'm afraid it's going to become normalized. People, no, they don't ever sleep, Mugen. Well, what are your thoughts on Trump's new CDC director? I heard about her. I have not looked into it, to be honest. Hey, Roto Rudy, what's going on? What's a troll? But truly, I'm wondering if the protests, regardless of where you fall on politics, if it's being used to distract law enforcement, distract the FBI, Homeland, whoever, from something else going on. Because the precedent in Ukraine is there. Remember, when I first did the video on sabotage in Europe, right, against the military manufacturers in Europe, at the time there were only 11 recorded incidents of arson, sabotage, and they blamed the Russians, of course, right? It was their go-to. But there were, hey, Mad Chad, hey, Mugen, good morning, and thank you. There were only 11 incidents. Now, I looked at a new report this weekend, and it's reporting that there have now been 55 incidents that they are tying to sabotage, not protests and not terrorism, because no terrorist group is taking credit. Okay, and that's usually how you define terrorism, right? It's for a political aim. So it doesn't have to be, it can be Islamic, it could be white supremacist, whatever asshole group wants to start problems. They'll do something and then they say, we did that because we want you to change whatever political process we have. Nobody's claiming them. But they're finding, yes, there was an arson at Rheinmetall in Germany, which makes tanks and it makes ammunition, some of which is being sent to Ukraine. There was another one in England. There was another derailment in Europe that I didn't even hear about until recently, and it happened like 6 months ago. And they're suspecting that was a sabotage event, but they can't pin down who did it. The Nord Stream pipeline, I think it's going in both directions. The explosions in Russia's railways, the Nord Stream pipeline, that thing was half a mile under the water, or 300 meters under the water. It wasn't a half a mile. That's not shallow. Somebody needs to have technical knowledge to be able to send divers into cold water to destroy pipelines that have been reinforced to prevent accidental damage. So we've been seeing there's a precedent, is what I'm saying. And then all here in the US, around the same time all the fires were happening in Europe in the military, we were watching chicken processing, beef processing, all the farm fires that all of a sudden went away. They're like, oh, it was an accident. But it killed, 500,000 birds and 1 million head of cattle. And what the hell? What happened? Been sabotage here from countries pissed off about tariffs. Well, Farmer, and then I go to that, to CUCV Farmer, is there something larger happening? And the protests are simply a smokescreen for other people to get put in place, right? Because now that we've shifted in the immigration, right? We've locked down the border. Christy Gnome's like, we have operational control of 98% of the border. We're kicking people out. We're hunting down the terrorists, watch list people, criminals in our country, right? We're getting rid of them. They're losing those assets. Those people, some of them were put here for a reason. Now they're getting kicked out. And not all of them, right? Some of them were innocent folks. But is it possible? Is it feasible that now all of a sudden that we're pushing these foreign operatives out, or maybe pushing what we suspect may be foreign operatives out, all of a sudden now we have a bunch of new protests, which are being funded and personnel staffed by Americans or legal residents. And are they a smokescreen for something else? Are they meant to distract us from something more serious? And while we're all distracted by the stupid Tesla people, most of whom, if you look at them, they're just being idiots, are other people getting in place to do something. And this is something that concerns me. This is something that makes me wonder if we're watching the prelude, if you will, to something greater. And now all of a sudden Iran's making open threats about their hypersonics. Russia's saying, no, I'm not going to come to the table. We just had soldiers disappear in Lithuania. As of this morning, I'm hearing a New York prepper, NY prepper said it as well. They got that tank that they said the soldiers were missing, feared drown. They got the tank out. There's rumors the soldiers were not in the tank, in the recovery vehicle. So where the hell are they? It was right on the border between Lithuania and Russia. Did the Russians grab them? Did Belarus grab them? What the hell happened? Did they defect? Which is possible too. It's happened before. So what's the precedent here? Why are all these things happening at one time? And why are all these things happening at one time? And these are things that are hard to prepare for. I said it on my live stream this weekend, has got the whole gang back together. Yeah, just with new t-shirts and a new logo, right? And new colors on their flag. You know, make sure you have what you need, especially the meds. I think meds would get disrupted if there was some kind of larger incident. Power backups. But remember, your situation is different from everyone else's. So anyone who's new to trying to be ready for an emergency, trying to be prepared, don't look at someone who has a homestead who's been farming for 30 years and be like, oh, well, I can't do that, so why bother? No, you prepare based on what, and remember that you have certain resources. You have your time, you have your money, obviously, you have your energy, and then there's the resource of space. How much space do you have? And also knowledge. What is your knowledge base? Do you have the knowledge you need to do these things, right? It's free to go get knowledge, right? For the most part, you can go on YouTube or maybe go to a community college for very inexpensive classes and get knowledge. You can go to farmers market and get knowledge. You can ask friends who have knowledge to share it with you. So these are cheap things you can do. You can do them for free. And it also fulfills your life, right? I'd love eventually to put a vegetable garden in the back that's functional and doesn't die in this damn heat. That would be fulfilling for me. And it would serve a double purpose that it provides a factor in preparedness. Anything you can do on your own, a lot of World War II documentaries and movies. You know what? The victory gardens need to come back. People absolutely need to start planting victory gardens again, like they did back in the World War II. I think that guy almost ran into a pole. That was cool. Anyway, folks, just something to think about. Pay attention to the way. Pay attention to the way these countries are all acting at the same time. It almost feels like there's a larger movement at play, but I can't put my finger on it. I'm purely conjecturing. But make sure you have what you need to get through. And in your situation, remember, space is a factor. Time is a factor. Your job commitments are a factor. Your family's a factor. If it's just two adults like we are right now, that's great. If you're raising kids or you have your grandchildren or, you know, some nieces and nephews that you're now in charge of, you have to factor that in. So understand something. I feel like something's building, but I can't pin down where it's what's going on. And we have heard nothing about Taiwan, which that kind of freaks me out more, is how quiet Taiwan has been. I mean, has anyone heard anything on Taiwan other than, oh, China flew a jet around their island? It's been radio silent regarding the Taiwan issue. Everyone's looking to the west and not looking at the east. So, and anyway, folks, look, I'll leave you with those thoughts. You guys be careful out there, be safe, pay attention to what's going on, and ask yourself, if there's a disruption in Iran, how can that affect me? Oil and gas will go up, I'll tell you that right now. But if there's a issue in Russia, how would that affect me? If it's Taiwan, it's going to be a lot of general products and pharmaceuticals, not necessarily oil. China's an oil consumer, not a producer. Iran and Russia are OPEC nations. So how would that factor in? Right? That's going to spike the price of oil, and it's going to strip the economy. So, oh, hey, Jim, we were talking about if the Tesla protests are actually a smokescreen for something else going on, regardless of whether you like Elon or not, that they're just creating a general disruption so other people can do things that we haven't seen yet. Purely conjecture on my part. Right, and Japan is also militarizing, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But look, folks, you guys be careful out there, be safe, and pay attention to your surroundings. Remember, protests can escalate very quickly. So if you're in a city or driving through an area where they're gonna have a protest, kind of get clued in. Where is it gonna be held? What are your alternate routes? Where can you drive or stay that's safe while the protest fizzles out or law enforcement deals with whatever's going on? You guys be good, be careful out there, and I'm headed to work. You guys be good.